Line 2. All right.
Okay, I officially call this meeting to order, and I'm going to immediately pass it off to Nina for the announcements about a possible venue change.
Yes. So yes, the only announcement I had today was that, we've had a lot of trouble with City Hall and after hours meetings and having locked doors and security and all that and accommodation. So we do have the same capabilities here in the Advanced Learning Library, the second floor boardroom. I have checked and we do have availability for all of our future dates through October. So we're gonna go ahead and move things there. It should make things a lot easier. I'll make sure to give out notice through our listserv. But just so you know, that will go into effect next month. That next meeting is July 27th at 6:15. That will be in that second floor. Any comments, concerns about that?
I think that'll be easier on all of us.
That's great.
It's a great.
I'll look up a few movies anyway, because just having to get through security and everything.
Right. We want to make it more accessible. Plus, they do have speakers on the tables that pick up a lot better than these do. So it should be a lot easier for our friends who are joining us online. Perfect.
That's a nice room too.
Yeah. And since half of us are online, we don't need a huge space. So, yeah.
That sounds good. Did anyone else have, well, I guess we'll get to that later. So approval of minutes. Nina sent around the minutes from the May meeting. I would like to request a motion for approval of those minutes.
A motion.
A second? Second. Okay. So if you would like to vote yes, please say aye.
Aye.
Same sign, say no, or same sign.
Except it's not the same sign.
You're supposed to say no.
I am not.
All those opposed say no.
Tonight.
But that's never made sense to me when people say that, so.
I know, I've always wondered that too, but it's a thing that they say, so.
Yeah.
Go. Okay, so the minutes passed from last month. We're gonna now start with any public comments. Anyone in the room first, and then we'll move to Zoom. Dane?
It's up to me.
It's up to you.
Thank you. Fred, come on. I will say that several people went to the county this morning.
Sorry.
You're official here. We're being
Zoom, they went to
hear you up there. So several people went to the county this morning, the county commission meeting, to ask for a county sustainability board, either in conjunction with this board or separate. So that proved controversial, but at least that was requested. Some county commissioners seemed to be favorable and others didn't. The three speakers seemed to coincidentally all talked about transportation. So thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Yes, when proved controversial, was it general controversial or there was kind of a split, or controversial in the sense of maybe looking at doing something with the sustainability board, or both?
Two folks said, not our problem, go to the MAPC or go to the Regional Alliance of Cities and whatever that's called. I'm sorry. So no, not us. So they were all cordial.
Was there a positive comment as well from the commissioners?
One commissioner stated how much solar and wind had saved so far this year. There was a substantial project that's saving the county money. So the only input in that direction was positive. Yes.
Great. Shane. Any public comments coming from the Zoom call?
Come on, y'all.
I was another one of those who joined Jane this morning to speak at the county commission, but she already gave an update on that. So.
Any other public comments coming from Zoom?
I don't really have anything planned. My name is Nalini Frazier, and but I do just want to make a comment to say that I'm still so excited about this board being established, and however we can grow and coordinate, with a county board, if that comes to be, that would be fantastic. But while I'm excited about the establishment of the board, I am eagerly anticipating action and to hear what those plans are. So that's what I'm listening in for. Thank you guys so much for the work that you're doing.
Thanks, Monica. Okay, great. Okay, so discussion items. I'm gonna pass the first one over to you about the air quality program rebate pilot.
Do I want to see the lawn care rebate pilot? Yeah, there we go. Quality, look at that, it's all things.
So this is something that was put together by me and other staff members in Public Works. And this is part of the air quality program, which if you know, my purview facilitates that program. And so this is something that we're looking to test out as a new incentive program and something to add to this program, not some education and outreach that we do. So again, yeah, the city of Wichita is contracted through Kansas Department of Health and Environment to provide air quality programming. And that includes education, outreach, as well as efforts to partner with community organizations, manufacturers, whoever, to try and reduce our emissions locally. So, and that funding is then through EPA, so it's passed through from EPA to KDHE to us. So we report to KDHE, we also report to EPA yearly to let them know what we're doing, what we're trying out. So again, this is a way for us to try something new and spread the word a little bit and incentivize people to take their own actions that they do for emissions reduction. So what this program entails is it is a $50 rebate to people in the Wichita area who purchase a new electric or battery powered lawn equipment, or like a self-propelled reel mower, something like that.
Mower. Dare you? And signed it. Mower.
And when they recycle their old gas or diesel powered equipment. And we do have partners that we've aligned with who would take those, scrap them, so that they're no longer out in the public being used, essentially. We intend to promote this through social media, flyers at local home improvement stores, through our neighborhood resource centers and our libraries, as well as through mayor's media briefings and that nature. So we spread the word organically that way. That seems to work really well for our water conservation rebate program. This is situated very, very similarly to how that program operates. So essentially, the recyclers will provide a voucher to those who bring in equipment to recycle that shows that they did actually recycle their lawn care equipment. That and a receipt or copy of a receipt is used to show that they've taken all the steps. And then once that application is received by us, a rebate check is sent via the mail, which should only take 2 weeks or so for them to receive that. And the reason we want to do this is, again, we want to increase that education and awareness surrounding air quality. There's a lot of different ways we can tackle this, and this is just one aspect of how we want to do that. But we've done modeling in the past that shows that not all the air quality issues that we have are formed locally. We have a lot of transported ozone that comes up from Oklahoma and Texas. But what we can impact here, has the potential to be substantial. Non-road mobile sources is a big sector of ozone emissions, and that includes lawn equipment. That makes up 25 to 36% of local emissions. This is also an effort to really gauge the interest of the public as far as taking these initiatives on themselves and doing actions that can benefit the environment. So we're trying to see how much awareness there is of doing these things, but also how interested are people in taking it on themselves instead of, say, being mandated to do something. And this can also be a way to assess a wider scale program. There is potential for funding for a bigger program through the bipartisan infrastructure law, where we can use more funds and make this at a larger scale, potentially with a little more detail. We try to keep it somewhat simplified for our purposes here, just because it is a pilot and we're only working with so much of our funds. So we want to make sure we work out the kinks before we make this really, really widespread. And so this is going to utilize $10,000 from our air quality program. This is already money that is set aside for this program specifically. And so this is an attempt to use our resources that we have allocated to us. I know in previous years, depending on, especially with COVID, we didn't always use all of our funding. And so this is an attempt to really maximize the potential for the funding we do receive. And that, again, comes from that KDHE grant. There is also a required local match. It is a 60-40 match, 60 coming from KDHE, 40 coming from the city, that gets pooled into this program. Background there. So the next steps, this is going to City Council on July 5th for an official vote. We will be going live the same day, so people will be able to go onto our website and either download an application to fill out or fill out the online application. But we are very clear that we want people to also recycle that combustion mower or other equipment, so that is a necessary part of doing that. This program will run until funds are depleted, and so this will allow for about 200 rebates if everyone's taking that full 50. Obviously, if you're buying something incredibly inexpensive, we will not pay the rebate higher than their purchase price. And then after the fact, we would also like to survey all of our participants to assess the program, really see where any problem areas arise, and see where there's room for improvement. That way, if we do seek federal funding for a more robust program in the future, we can assess and address all of these, any issues ahead of time. So that's just a pretty broad overview. I have a lot of details that I can provide you if you have questions. Yes.
I'm curious, you said that from non-road mobile things, there are 25 to 36% of the emissions generated. Does that mean that we know what the carbon footprint is for Wichita, or how do you define that?
So we do have data that we pull from National Emissions Inventory. So through that, we're able to do a breakdown of source categories. So it does provide sort of a broad look at it. It's not super defined, But that's also something that we're looking to flesh out a little bit more, is that emissions inventory, because that's something that we'd like to go hand in hand with our climate planning for next year. We want to make sure we have that robust inventory with those details that show us where exactly emissions are coming from. But this data was also a part of the model that we had contracted previously with another company to sort of see what the trends are. And that was one of the things that they noted based on our 3 air quality monitors, was that they looked at the different source categories and it ranged. That low range was about 25%, that high range was about 36%. And all of these are going to be rough estimates because we don't really have a great way of getting those exact numbers.
So it is an estimate.
It is an estimate. Mhm.
Okay. I'm just curious.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Just a suggestion that you probably don't need, or at least don't need yet. A lot of the people who live on big lot subdivisions are not interested in electric, but a lot of the people who live in the older inner circle subdivision or neighborhoods are. And I wondered if you thought about going through the DABs. Like I know Delano has a newsletter that they send out. If they put a note in that newsletter, I suspect you might be able to get all the interest you needed just from Delano.
And Riverside.
Yeah, that sounds perfectly reasonable. That's definitely something we can do, and we're trying to spread it as wide as we can. Obviously, we're not trying to have this depleted so quickly that people are angry at us if there's nothing left. But yeah, absolutely, we can definitely use the DABs as a resource.
Nina, this is Tammy. And this is probably, you don't need to hear this to me. You guys probably thought about it, but I know personally, how does one go about using the neighborhood app? Like, is that an avenue? I enjoy the updates and even weather information and that sort of thing through the neighborhood app. So when thinking about how to get awareness, even when people don't use it, one of the things they know is that they like knowing that cities and companies and all offer things like that. So that would, if there was a mechanism, I don't know how that works. I'm just throwing that out as a suggestion.
That's definitely something we can look into. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not sure if the city utilizes.
I think
Like-
Delano, it's the DAB that operates
On the app.
the neighborhood app.
Okay.
So, but I'm not sure.
I'll talk to the city manager's office and get some excuse me, clarification on that. But yeah, well, that's definitely something we can look into as well. Thank you.
Nina, are there other examples in other cities that have done similar programs, and what were their results?
So Louisville, Kentucky has been doing it for 20 plus years. They've had a lot of success with it. I don't know how long it sort of took them to sort of gain a good response. But I did talk to them briefly just to see what kind of barriers they experienced. That they said the hardest part is maintaining that relationship with the recyclers and making sure everybody's on the same page. But from what I know, 20 years speaks volumes. So they must have a lot of success with that. The other area or region that I know has a similar program is El Dorado County in California. They have a similar program as well. And I don't recall which one, but one of them does have rebates specifically for companies. So it's not just a residential side, they offer rebates to nonprofits and other corporations to have a little bit of a higher impact. And they are also able to offer a little bit of a higher rebate, which is something we might be able to do in future years. But right now, with the money that is allocated to this, we're not able to do that.
I just had a question. 60-40 seems pretty low for what I've known in the past the city to accept. They like 80-20. Is 60/40, it's a relatively small amount of money,
It is.
why that's acceptable.
And it's been.
Council will vote for it.
Yes, so that grant has been going since 2012, I believe. It always goes on consent agenda and it always passes. So it's pretty standard for this particular grant. But, right, I'm not sure when it comes to other ones, but yes, this one we do always receive the funding. It's a program, and we have already received it for this year. So we have the funds. We are not, the city council vote is mostly informative because the money is already allocated into this program and is going towards programs. Just so you are aware, it will pass.
Good.
Is there any data at all on the actual impact on emissions from anywhere?
Regarding lawn care equipment or, I know there's rough estimates that say that, they're as bad as, and it varies, 4 times as bad as the emissions from your typical passenger vehicle, up to 11 times. So those have been like, there's estimates in between too. So a lot of times people say like about 6, based on what the current standards are.
That's just lawnmowers. It doesn't count, leaf blowers and edgers and trimmers and by the time you add up all those 2-stroke engines, it's just god awful. It really is.
Okay, so yes, this would have a real significant impact then in terms of.
And where are we at with the attainment? I mean, we've been kind of close all for several years now, but from, where are we at?
Are you, as far as our attainment, we are, I believe our last 3-year rolling average was 62 or 63. National standard is 70. So we have had 1 exceedance day this year, but we are looking pretty good. We do still want to bring things down because there's been a lot of talk at the national level and the EPA on revising those national ambient air quality standards down to 65 or so. We don't know exactly what it would be. So, this is a effort in preparation to bring things down as much as we can. But yeah, so far this year, there's no cause for concern. We should be staying on that general trend that we've seen for the past several years of mid-60s.
Any other questions for Nina?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Holger.
So really, more comment, but I first of all, I welcome this program. It's every time my neighbors mow, it drives me crazy, both the noise and the emissions. So this is, I really do welcome this program. At the same time, though, I would like to point out that rebate programs like this really are accessible only to those who can afford to upgrade their lawn equipment. And so I would like to challenge everybody to think outside the box, think creatively, think about ways how the work of the Sustainability Integration Board can benefit everybody and not just those who can participate in rebate programs. We can't truly have sustainability while structural inequality persists. And so I feel reasonably strongly that particularly the work of the Sustainability Integration Board, really the entire city operations should strive for equal access, and unfortunately rebate programs don't meet that requirement really. So again, while I do welcome this program and think that that's $10,000 well invested, I also would like to warn against not considering viewpoints of those who can't participate in rebate programs. there's a case in point to just elaborate. Evergy has that filing in front of the Kansas Corporation Commission, and they claim they are doing this. They had this matrix of like 9 different ways in which they benefit industry and residents and so on. And out of those many points, there was one little box that benefited ordinary people, and that was largely programs that were inaccessible to people who couldn't provide matching funds of their own and so on. And so there are nonprofit organizations such as CEP and Prairie Roots that work with residents in 67214 to find ways in which sustainability can be fostered in a equitable way. So if we can't come up with our own ideas, there are groups we can maybe tap into for ideas. Thank you.
Yeah, and you make a good point about accessibility. As I said before, this is just one avenue that we're pursuing. And one of the other things that we're working on too is identifying some programs that we can pursue funding for through the bipartisan infrastructure law that will, cater to low-income individuals and be a little bit more fleshed out and robust in that aspect. So it is something that we'll definitely keep in mind as we're moving forward with our future programming as we expand this.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Joe Madden. Just another suggestion I think that could maximize the impact of this rebate program is to use it as an opportunity to educate the public on just quantitatively just how much pollution, air pollution there is from lawn equipment. I think what you said, that it could be as much as 11 times the pollution of a personal automobile is staggering. And I wasn't sure if those numbers are like on a per gallon basis or in total. But either
an hour run for each. If you're running your car for 1 hour, running your mower for 1 hour, that's the comparison that the EPA has used.
Yeah, see that's staggering. And I think just using this rebate program to kind of, even though obviously limited number of people can take advantage of the program itself, but a much wider part of the population can gain an awareness of just how much pollution is generated. Because I think when I first read about it somewhere, it was just staggering. It was way more pollution than I would have guessed. So it's definitely, a great opportunity. And I think one thing to maybe consider in doing in parallel to this is any city contracts for lawn care, maybe incentivizing the lawn care company to use more sustainable equipment, where possible, kind of incentivizing them contractually, or maybe at some point in the future even requiring, when that equipment's more widely available.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. That's something that we've tossed around as well with this rebate. So, one of the things we discussed was potentially, if we wanted to go that direction of incentivizing our contracted company or others in town. For this particular year, we'll be focusing on residential rebates, but it sounds like that's something we want to do in the future, and possibly, yes, take that further and either make it a requirement or put in some standards. But that will be something that would be outside of this rebate, but it is something that we definitely mulled over, and I think will probably come down the pipeline at a later time.
Nina, what do you see as the likelihood of significant growth of funding for this program? I mean, obviously you want to see how the pilot program works, but But do you foresee this being something that could be significantly extended over time to hit more than 200 minutes effectively?
Right, so the air quality program in itself is probably not going to see expanded funding, but we would be able to use federal funding for this program. So it doesn't have to reside in the air quality program, and KDHE funds and city funds to be able to fund this program. We could use some from air quality, we could use some from PIL, depending on how we prioritize that in the future. So
That's where it would grow in terms of.
exactly. It would, I'm not sure what it would look like on the back end as far as where it gets put. But that would be its own separate project that the air quality program would manage. But it would be separate from those funds probably. And that might be something that we have to work out with KDHE in the future. Any other comments or questions?
I wanted to follow up really fast on Holger's point about, thinking through a program that would allow folks, and kind of putting that back on the idea of future funding, right? If there could be opportunities for maybe more significant rebates or some other type of programming that would allow maybe on an income basis, people to access these types of equipment when they wouldn't normally be able to.
Yeah. And I think that's something we could do. We would just have to work out the logistics of how do we determine who's low income, those sort of things. That's when it gets really tricky. But that's definitely something to see how feasible that would be. Sure. So Jennifer asked what will be done with the equipment you receive. We are not receiving any equipment here at the city. That will be all taken care of through our recycling partners. Right now we work with ABC Recycling, who will take various lawn care equipment, and All Metal Recycling, who will take mowers. So they will be the ones taking it, scrapping it, and then providing that verification that that person has. So with that, I don't know if you guys wanted to make a formal motion to support this effort as something we can bring to council on the 5th, since we don't make a lot of motions here.
Sure. we can do that.
Well, I wanted to just ask another question.
Sure.
Or make a recommendation. The recycling companies, some of the salvage yards are quite bad about disposing of lawnmowers, particularly because they contain gasoline. And there was one of them that was spraying all these leavings onto a field next to their business. So I would want to make sure what they're doing with those mowers.
Right. So we do actually have in our rebate terms, we do specify that all equipment brought needs to be drained ahead of time. That needs to be brought to an appropriate facility such as Sedgwick County household hazardous waste. So they should not be accepting anything that still has fluids.
How do you drain it? How do you drain that? You drain that. You just run it until it runs out.
Oh, I always did it, but it's been.
That's how most people do it.
Turn it over and.
That's what I wonder. How do you drain it if it's, because when we do neighborhood cleanups, that's always an issue for that and other things. Can't have any gasoline in it. And most of those things get refused because it's still there.
Right. And we want to make sure that that is not an issue on the recycler side. So that's part of the terms that they agree to.
So are you asking us to endorse?
Yes. Basically, as we can bring it to council and say that the sustainability board officially backs the project, so to speak.
I would like to make a motion that the Sustainability Board request City Council to support the lawn care rebate program.
I will second.
This is Tammy. I'll second.
Yeah.
Good one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Is that a late support or an opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Say no if you opposed.
No, I'm saying aye.
Okay.
Just checking.
Just checking.
All right, thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so next on our agenda for discussion items, any committee updates from this last month? I want to start with.
You know I do.
I do. That's why I'm
Yeah, but I
looking.
would also like to hear from other groups.
Absolutely.
We met again just yesterday. And we had two different things that we were looking at. One of them is a grant that is 75-25. Federal grant, composting and food waste reduction.
Oh yeah, let's start with your committee name, just so everyone's.
It's the Waste and Recycling Committee. We focused on waste at this point. There is the composting and food waste reduction grant money that was just released on June 3rd. So it's very new and the deadline is September 1st. I don't know what they're thinking with that short of a timeline, but to do something like this, we would have to get on it right away. There is no limit to, I mean, you can ask for $300,000. 45,000 is the lowest amount, 45 to 300,000. So they've got this money. It's not a competition. Pretty much if you apply, you get it, is what it sounds like to me. And what we were hoping to do was use this toward yard waste, education, collection, advertising, maybe purchase of things like, I know that the county has done free mulching blades that people didn't really take advantage of. But education on why mulching is the way to go. Everybody, any new mower, even whether it's electric or not, comes with a mulching blade. And there's no reason to break all this stuff up when it feeds your lawn. You know, so education would be one of them, and maybe something like a grinder so that we could get rid of limbs. Because yard waste being grass, you can mulch that, but limbs are a whole nother story. So that was what we were considering for that too. They say that their purpose is to provide assistance through cooperative agreements to municipalities, counties, local governments, or city planners in the US for planning and implementation activities that will generate compost, which is what this would do. Or increase access to compost to agricultural producers, reduce reliance on fertilizer, which is what compost does, improve soil quality, which is what compost, I mean, these are all these different things, plus divert food waste from landfills. If we had a way to put all of this in one spot and that the public could take advantage of it and the city could take advantage of it. The schools are already starting to do this. Some of the schools are already starting to do this.
The small towns around Wichita are already doing this.
Yeah.
I just don't know that Wichita is.
Or Wichita's not, but we could.
Oh,
And this is 75% cost reduction in whatever we propose. So this is possible. It is also due on September 1st.
Yeah, we've got 2 months.
So we've got to move quickly. I'm not a grant writer, but if you can help us, Nina. I know you told me why we couldn't do this before, but
I want to make sure, right, that we have all the details because I have to run this up the chain, make sure that this is something that we can do.
they have a great link and they have an FAQ link, which I really
Okay.
I read through. So yeah.
Send me the information. I'm gonna touch base probably this week with some public works people. And I guess I'm wondering, are you thinking of creating a new site or using an existing site for compost?
It could definitely be an existing site.
Something like, because I know Brooks landfill does have a composting section, but they take mostly large tree limbs and things like that. But that is, there's been discussion in the past of, very vaguely of, we could expand this effort.
The expansion, if we had some money to help, might be able to, but education must be a big part of this. too, and there would be some money to go toward that.
Where do
Radio
all
ads
the,
or whatever.
where do all the truckloads of tree limbs that you see going down the road from the various lawn and landscape maintenance companies, where do those end up?
I think they go to Brooks.
They go to Brooks,
And then what? They sit there until they're,
they grind them, or what do they do?
I'm not sure. Ask, but
I know those grinding machines that they feed whole trees into are like
Grinders are,
hugely expensive.
yeah, they are. And that probably is not something we would do, but the county has one of them.
But if Brooks already has those, and we were to, you know, part of the grant ask for smaller ones, again, like you're saying, for smaller tree limbs and things of that nature, and maybe that's.
But part of the problem that we see with that is having people be able to get it up there. So we might need to work, we might have to try to figure out a way to do collection sites someplace, not all the way the heck up there. Because that's far, especially for people who don't have easy access to transportation, don't have a truck. And all this stuff, there's a whole lot involved.
Well, I have two 6-foot by 6-foot composting bins, which are full all the time, just from flowers and perennials and garden waste. Not mowing, but that gets mulched, and not branches, just. So anybody who gardens, a lot of gardeners try to do their own, but especially if you're an urban gardener, it's hard to find the room to do it.
And branches are not as easily compostable as your grass would be. And it will take a long time unless you have the weight of compostable materials that will make the composting hotter, that will make it compost quicker. So something like this that was larger could actually compost faster. And that compost could be sold, could be offered back to the people who put that in there. But I mean, there are ways to make money off of it, which I know is important for the city council.
Have you contacted some of the cities? Say Winfield maybe has a program?
It's got this yesterday.
Okay.
So, no.
Okay, well, I'm gonna regret this later. I have written grants. If you can't find anybody else to help you.
Well, I know that Nina, I mean, I think the city grant is not our grant, it's the
Yeah.
city grant. So the city would have to be the one.
have to be the ones to submit it. We'll say, I'm not trying to give myself more work because I'm already slammed.
If we can give them draft text that Nina can edit,
Yeah.
that would probably make Nina more
And
interested.
there's a lot of this on the website too. So I will send you that link, please, so that you can look through it. And there's a lot of really good information and it's designed for just people.
Does it also provide funding for like potentially home composting, like the ones you turn and keep in your backyard?
It's supposed to be governmental.
Okay,
So
I see. So,
homeowners can't apply because I remember reading that part. But
or I should say, we could apply and offer that as a potential.
I think that you could, but it has to be city. So I would think that you could.
And have to pass through the city and then the city would have to administer.
But I don't know, there's a lot of details. I got through the FAQs, this many of them, and then there was lots more, so I didn't go all the way through because it was late by the time we got home last night. So that is one of the things that we're looking at that I think could really be a huge benefit here.
Three things. Right now, folks dispose of tree limbs through trash companies, but they could be dirty too much. Those nice wood chips. I wanted to point out that tomorrow and the next day, WSU and some local partners are having sessions on food waste. You know, there's two local companies that do composting and pick up scraps. So there's some competition as well. Just wanted to, has anybody heard?
Could that be competition or could that be an opportunity? Maybe there's already companies.
This also requires you to have partnerships with other agencies, and I know that Nudge Compost would be a partner. Because Jesse serves on this committee with us, and he would love to do this. And I would guess that the other company would too. It doesn't have to be The city does it all. It's
Right.
supposed
That's what
to
I'm
be a
wondering.
partnership with other organizations.
Right. It's kind of what
So,
I'm.
yeah, for sure.
It's a free sessions, two mornings on food waste. And so it's extension and it's nudge and 5 or 6 other.
Will you be there? Okay, that's okay. I was gonna recruit you to be a note taker, but.
So, yeah, I mean, not try to take advantage of this if we can.
Exactly.
If you think that the city will go for a 75-25, I don't imagine it would be $300,000.
I was about to say 25% of $300,000 is a lot harder of a sell than of 45,000. But,
What about 100,000? If they went for, because I mean, you wanted something that's actually gonna have impact, right? So, you know, in terms of what would it cost to do certain things, and obviously that's part of what you figure out as part of the grant writing, but if we get 100,000 and then the city put in 500.
It's 75-25.
Yeah.
Office.
And semi-county, semi-state. But that would be another partnership.
I don't know if a grinder might not be what they want you to do with this money, but honestly,
I think it is.
the city during COVID pretty much cut their tree maintenance budget to zero. And they are just now starting to try to make up a 2.5-year, 3-year backlog. And I know in my neighborhood and in many other of the older neighborhoods where the trees are 100 years old, there's dead trees all over the place. It has to be ground up, and that mulch ought to go. I don't know if they have the capacity to handle all the dead wood they're going to have to be handling over the next year or so. And but if they could acquire another mulcher dedicated to producing mulch, that would then be available for gardeners to pick up and use. I think that could be.
From what I understand, you know, the county is the one that does the Christmas tree. There is a demand for that mulch. When it's done, people call them every day asking, where is there some? Because it disappears as fast as it's generated, right? Of course, it has icicles and stuff in it, but still, I mean, you know, it's good mulch.
Coated with something from Lowe's and you're done.
But there's a demand for it. But it's also neighborhoods that get these. It's not Brooks landfill. So again, bringing it to where the people are is going to be part of the challenge for something like this. And that may be a big part of what the cost too is finding the location to do that. So, but I mean, there's a lot of details that we need to start putting together. But I will send you that so you can look at what they're looking for. And you may go, oh God, of course. Exactly what we need to ask for.
So I won't say that, you know, the money aspect is out of the question. We're working on that. So right now, I think what we need to do is figure out what's feasible. I'll talk to some people in Public Works to see what is doable. If you want to also come up with some ideas of preferred programming, that way we can start narrowing things down. Because it's really hard starting from this really large bucket with so many directions we can go. So you can prioritize on your end what you think is going to have the most impact, or what you think is going to be the most likely to be put into place. And then we can also look at the feasibility side on our end and then merge the two and see kind of what comes out on top.
The two that would be the most help, I think, would be Jesse Marks at Nudge and Susan Erlin Wyman, a solid waste person. I think she could really give us a lot of details on this. She also gave us a lot of details on the other thing that I have that we talked about. And see what happens though when you talk about stuff like this, because we're all excited about it, right? So I will get that to you and then we can start building what you need for that. The other thing, of course, that we talked about was franchising. And we were asked, Nina has gotten in touch with the city manager And she asked us to come up with the list of complaints, which we chose to call concerns. Okay, they're not necessarily complaints.
Right.
You know, because I've got a list of complaints from people, I mean, a lot of complaints. But we came up with the list of concerns, and I just sent that to you before I came. So you should have that more fleshed out concerns.
Yes, I did see that. I have not had a chance to.
But the cost is a big thing. Some people don't care, but a lot of people do, and they're upset because it keeps going up and up and up. And a lot of that is related to the price of gasoline. A lot of it is. And you talked about already air quality. We could have a huge impact on air quality for the city of Wichita if we had only one trash truck on one street, period.
Instead of 7 or 12.
This would make a huge difference. Exactly. It would make a huge difference. So we have a list like the cost, air quality, the damage to the roads that is expensive. And if you live on a residential street, which we all do, that's the last street that's ever going to get. They don't come and repair our streets. No. So it's going to take years for that damage to get repaired. And you can see it on a lot of the roads because they have 10 trash trucks on their road every week. It's ridiculous. Illegal dumping is a huge, expensive problem. Franchising trash and adding at least twice a year bulky waste pickup for free would probably almost end the problem of illegal dumping. Getting the cost down will also get more people getting trash service that can't afford it now. One of the things that I heard from a lot of people too was they're sharing trash. That's illegal. Doesn't have to be. As long as the city has a count of where they are, you can share with your neighbors. Why not?
The idea behind that is they want to make sure everybody does something legal with their trash, but that law is badly written. It's throwing the baby out with the
It's
bathwater.
ridiculous. Yeah, there's no reason for that. My trash cart goes out once a month. Maybe. So I invite my neighbors if they have access to put it in my cart. You know, I mean, none of my neighbors do though, because of where I live and the neighbors that I have. But some of them don't put their carts out either. You know, me and my next door neighbors could share a cart easily and we would be good, but we can't do it now. So that would be something that could be written into this new ordinance as well. Doing a citywide compost is what we've done now. That can be part of this. Reducing the noise. Because every time a truck goes down, it's clang, 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 clang. Yeah, I mean, it's awful. It's awful. And I have to listen to that 6 or 7 times a week. Poor service is an issue that we're having right now. Particularly. A couple of the haulers, sounds like one of them might probably have to go under. We have 8 haulers in Wichita. And this one has basically stopped picking up trash and won't answer the phone, won't return messages. So I feel like they're probably out of business. They just haven't told anybody yet.
So we're better than we were a decade ago. We have like 35.
We used to.
Yes.
10 years ago, when this was first proposed, there were more than 30 haulers.
It's 35 or 36, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Coming
Yeah.
across this.
But they were all on board with it. They were going to form a co-op, is what I understand. So that they all could share the city equally, however, you know, whatever number of trucks they have or whatever. Why can't we do that now when we have so many less of that? We could do that. I mean, there's so many benefits to doing this. And I've got the list with some of the description of them, but that's what we're working on right now. The manager wants our committee to meet with all the haulers. I have no idea how he thinks he's gonna plan that.
Oh, I have to plan it.
You have to plan it? Oh, God.
I'm the one that has to set up all the scheduling.
Oh, God.
A lot.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
You
if
gotta
there's,
do each one individually, or could you
he
do?
wants them all at once.
Yeah, it's
All at
supposed to
once, okay.
be all at once and it's going to be I think mostly a conversation between the committee and the haulers with the city manager as the facilitator. And trying to see what we can do while not entirely, while maintaining both relationships essentially. Which may be easier said than done, but,
We need to make sure that the haulers have some preliminary information at a time to see how it will be beneficial to them, and it will be. How much money are they gonna save by doing this? A lot.
That's the thing, you have to give them the business case. If
Oh,
you can
yeah.
do that, then.
Cost savings would be tremendous.
That was the idea last time, was supposed to break the city into pieces. Each of the trash haulers wouldn't be able to give it a piece of it.
Exactly.
And the price for each piece would have all been the same. It would all been the same. So the council at the time said, no, they wanted a free market approach to it. So
Well, they said that, Bob said that they got that from the people who complained about it. But I want to ask Bob, how many people are we talking about? 5 really loud people? What I suspect.
That's usually how that goes.
That is. You get 5 people that just complain to every council member and just blah, and they can stop it. They can.
Sometimes they can.
They can. Absolutely, they can. So I wonder what happened. To me, we have to do what's best for the city. Even if a dozen people complain.
Or I do know in the past when this was proposed before, were the companies themselves interested? Did they seem at the time amenable to it?
That's what I understand is, yes, they were on.
they were.
They were on board. Okay, so really, at the end of the day, as long as they're on board and people get better service for it at a lower cost, then that should be the case, right?
I like the idea of it because then they would just have a quadrant and they could just focus on that quadrant and try to do the whole city.
Yes, cheaper for them.
Particularly if it's a smaller company.
Faster. Yeah,
And since that time, that 35 or 36 it was in 2011, now I've consolidated. So, I mean,
Right.
if you're dealing with less now.
yeah, so they could have larger zones.
It would be much easier to get that split up.
Yeah.
One of the issues would be, how are we gonna do that? To me, a pie, you got eight, you can split into 8 pieces that go all the way out to the edge of the city. So that when that piece of the city grows, you grow.
Yeah.
But doing it this way, you will instantly.
I will say, like in my neighborhood in Delano, a lot of people have alley pickup. And a lot of the companies don't even have trucks that are small enough to go down the old alleys in the old neighborhoods. So the pie up to a point, but maybe like with the downtown neighborhood, a lot of the business pickups and the small lot alley type neighborhood pickups, it's a different kind of equipment, so that might need to be its own zone.
Well, but that's fine as long as there's only one truck.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if you put a point in the middle of downtown and go out and have to have every company have the equipment to do those tight locations downtown, I don't know that makes sense, but.
Well, and that's just a suggestion.
Yeah.
It's just an idea about one way that you could do it, that they wouldn't complain, well, how am I gonna grow?
Right.
When they're already gonna be completely overwhelmed when this goes into place with the number of houses they get to serve that they weren't serving before.
It protects their businesses too, in that sense, right? If they've got their zone and they're not competing against each other for that zone.
You're not gonna lose any customers ever. Some people might combine trash, if we can make that happen, but they still get everybody on the block or the other.
Only piece I could see that could be a problem for the consumer on this would be if their particular trash company wasn't functioning as well for X, Y, and Z reasons. Right, that's the only, at the moment at least, the only kind of downside or potential downside I could see.
If that were to happen. is
Yeah,
what you mean?
right, if that were to happen. I mean, I'm sure that could be dealt with. I'm sure there's ways to do it. That they could lose their piece of the pie to their other, if they don't perform. I'm sure you probably
Exactly.
do this, but that's the only thing I can think of from a consumer's worry, right? That what if my guy doesn't?
Right now, the concern that I hear is some people love their current trash.
Really?
Why is something that the haulers don't like? Because my trash hauler, a neighbor of mine, pays them under the table and takes stuff that's over what she's supposed to have taken. She can give them $10 and they'll take furniture for her. He loves them. But who pays the cost of that? They don't, it's not $10 worth and they don't give it to the boss. But then they find out that this is happening and they're not happy. So this would equalize the playing field. And she'd worried about not having her hauler, but we'd also have bulky waste pickup for her, which I would like to do more than twice a year. I'd like to see it quarterly at least, or even monthly. Some states, some cities do it monthly.
Electronic waste, yeah, let's add that in there too.
Yeah. That's a whole nother thing.
That is a whole nother
That's
thing.
a whole nother.
We have had, one of our recyclers that we're partnering with, they have talked about wanting to expand their efforts with e-waste. So there's potential elsewhere to do some programming, not necessarily with trash haulers maybe, but with some of these other recycling. There's a bunch of recycling businesses in town.
Yeah. Well, and I know the county runs these every, however often they do it, I don't even know. But when they do it, they get so much e-waste. Just like they get so many tires when they do the tire drives. I mean, people who do tires for a living just pile them up out back and wait for this day. And they're okay with it because they want them to go somewhere. You know, I mean, I get lots of information from Susan being on this committee. She knows everything. And she's a great asset for us. But that's where we stand at this point. We just have to count on Nina to try to figure out a time for all of us to meet.
So I will say that the city manager's schedule is very chaotic. So I'm trying to work with his assistant to figure out, how far out we need to look at options while also trying to schedule these 8 other companies. But yes, that's the first step. And then once we meet once you all meet, figuring out a plan of action from there. And I think what's also going to take a long time is if there is an ordinance change, that's going to be a lengthy process. It's going to have to go through legal, and it's going to have to go through many revisions, and it's going to take time. Yeah,
We still have to get started.
but we can start now.
If we do it, if we start now, it'll only be a year.
Exactly. If we don't start now, it'll be 3 years from now. I'm just trying to give a general timeline so we don't.
Oh, no, nothing happens.
Everything's going to be changed by the end of the year.
but I think-
Well, nothing happens.
I mean, I think it's exciting that if we can get this going now, then a year from now, this time next year, we can be celebrating a win, right? So
Exactly.
that's a
Which
big
is the last time it took about a year, because we were right in the middle of that drought. Remember when Elizabeth went on to KMUW to try to promote the whole recycling thing at that point in time. Her counterpoint there said, well, we're in a water drought, so why would you want to force recycling? That was the idea, because you gotta rinse your cans out of whatever else, but I just still remember that to this day,
Okay.
Thank you, Lori. That's a really,
As long as we don't do it on a Wednesday. Because that's when the county commission meets.
Wednesday evening,
Wednesday, well,
daytime.
that's what I wonder. Is it daytime? Will we have to meet in the day or can we meet in the evening?
I'm not sure.
Right, see, but I'm just saying, if it's a Wednesday, not during the day, because Susan is always at the county commission meetings and we need her here for this. We need her for this. Tuesdays will be bad too, because it's a city council meeting, so.
whereas, do you already have on your committee someone from one of the trash companies?
No.
I recruit one after.
Well, we may be able to do that once we meet with them.
That's what I mean. Yeah, once you've met with them, maybe having their input too is going to be important along the way. But thank you. That was an excellent report and 2 exciting areas for us to pursue in your. Thank you.
We're working on it.
Who else met within the last month that has an update? On Zoom either? See iPhone going off.
Hi, this is Tammy. So just a quick update. We did meet with, I kind of call them commercial energy efficiency experts. They are 2 guys that I had had professional relationships with. So just reached out to them and asked their thoughts on the matrix that we had been provided from WSU to see if there was anything that really stuck out to them that they had seen in their experience. that they felt like was really worthwhile pursuing. And they had some thoughts, but the one thing that we talked at length about was one of the recommendations was conduct commissioning and retro commissioning study of agency buildings, and including equipment such as heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. From their experience in the commercial energy efficiency world, they have found that to be very helpful. So I guess based on that on the conversations that we had with them, and Nina was included, that really we have work to do with our own Wichita city facilities management. As we look at energy efficiency within our own buildings, we don't really know yet what's been done where and when. For example, where are occupancy sensors, or where are programmable thermostats? We have ideas, but it really does seem like that sort of like an overall audit seems to be the first thing that needs to happen, so we know what's been done where and when, so we know how to build on that.
I did reach out to our main facilities guy to get some information about that, but I have not heard anything back this time. So I will follow up on that, and hopefully, I did send a whole list of things I was asking for, so hopefully that didn't overwhelm.
Yeah, very good.
Sense of both City Hall and other city buildings as far as what we're doing, so that we have some sort of base level.
Good, thanks, Tammy. Anyone else?
I do not at this time.
I'd say the three of us need to circle back more in communications. We'll get that going again. Okay, so in July, between now and our July meeting on the 27th, you said, Nina?
Yes, July 27th.
Let's all try to make some additional progress. Thank you, Lori, for the progress you're making. And if anyone needs additional resources to help get this going, let us know, because we'll be happy to help try to push more of the committees going forward.
And make sure that you check the updated list of committee members, because I'm hearing from some people that asked to be included that they were never contacted on some of these committees. Some of the committees have never met, but.
Do we have, where is, it's on the website?
It should be in the shared folder, and I can send that again.
I will just say that for the water, I've not done anything, so I've been gone.
That's one that I had questions about, with the water.
And then my counterpart, Rick, thank you. I think he's been pretty tapped out too for projects. So
Yeah, and as we start looking at our funding options too, we can prioritize, and I don't know, maybe some committees go on the back burner for a little bit, just depending on availability, or however you guys want to do that. I do have a green space meeting scheduled for the 28th, at 5:30. I think some of the things we had talked about for all committees is start thinking about targets and goals for the next 5, 10, 20 years. What's feasible short term? We'll have to circle back with funding.
I would say, like, what do you think you can do? It's kind of like what Lori's doing in the first year, 5 years, 10 years.
I am wondering, Tammy, can you tell me who all you've got on your energy efficiency and renewables list? I can bring up.
Not at the moment. Nina probably has it in front of her. Yeah.
Well, I know you guys are
Sorry.
meeting, so that's why I was.
Well,
wondering.
we had one meeting with the public, and we had like 2 or 3 people, show up, and then we had the second meeting again with commercial energy. The 2 guys that I pulled in to meet with us were not even local people. We were just trying to get their feedback. So we've only met with public once.
Yeah, this is Joe Madden. If you could make sure I'm on the, I'm supposed to be on the committee, and I've only heard about one meeting so far.
Chemicals are all on that committee.
There's like 8 or so people who expressed interest in that And I'll
Names of the ones we-
I can resend the list, and anytime we get, new people, I will resend the list. Oh, I also, I reached out to, the Young Professionals Group. There's potentially some interest. Here. I didn't have a lot of information to provide since a lot of these committees haven't met yet, and so there's no, solid meet date or anything, so it's just like, sorry, this is what I have.
Where possible, I think kind of like what we're doing with this, having a set day of, time and date of the month that you're gonna do it. Would probably be helpful for a lot of people to show up more and just put it on their calendars on a recurring basis. That may not be possible all the time, but where it is.
Yeah, and I think that's more doable once you figure out the schedules of like a few initial people, and then you're like, okay, we're always meeting this time.
We've actually been meeting more frequently.
I mean, it's good. I mean, and if you can, if your committee, if you have a committee that can do that and is able to do that, then by all means, please. I mean, the once a month is the baseline. And then from
Minimum.
there, if you have people who are committed to doing more, then great.
We've just got two really big things so far. There's more things.
Yeah, that's good.
But we're trying to get these two going.
Yeah, I think those are two very excellent starting points.
And again, if you guys schedule anything, I know you guys have like a last minute meeting, but I'll try and send out advance notice via our listserv. So if you have those in schedule, let me know and I can send out to it's not really a wide group right now, but we'll grow it in time. I'll send it out to the group and maybe garner some interest.
Thinking too from the communications committee side of things over here, as we figure out how can we get more community involvement. So Nina, once your program, for example, is passed tomorrow or on Tuesday, those might be things that we can share through a sustainability Facebook page or something like that, right? And I know we have to work with the city on how we handle those things, but the more we can grow some awareness and utilize that page for people who are specifically interested, because we might be able to get people on a page like that don't necessarily always watch the city page, for example.
Right. And I know that's not generally the direction that city communications likes to go. Like they like to have one centralized page. So it might be a harder sell, but we can definitely brainstorm some ideas. When it comes to searching for opinions, forum is still an option. I know we've talked about that before.
Here it sucks real big time though. Nobody ever does anything with it.
Well, as far as I know, we haven't had any big projects up there lately, so no one's been using it.
This is what I'm hoping, that we can do trash and that people will be energized to get on it. What I hear, it's not very well used so far.
Right. Well, and we don't advertise it a lot. The biggest thing that they use it for was the golf project. And then there hasn't been a big project since. So, and it also takes people promoting it and letting people know that it's on there. So there's that side too. Maybe it's not a functionality aspect, maybe it's an awareness thing, but right, it's so new and we haven't used it a lot. So we're still trying to direct people there and it's gonna take some
Do
time.
all the council members have weekly newsletters that they send out, or?
I believe so.
No. That would be the place to put it. In the council members newsletters. I know mine huge. The neighborhood assistants do a really good job. So that would be a really good way to reach out to people. Plus have the council member pages.
I think each council member has their own page too. So maybe there's things that they can. I don't know. Well,
That's true. Yeah.
And it needs to go out not only on Facebook, it needs to go on Twitter and
All of it.
Instagram and all that,
All the different.
all the things where young people. Facebook is not young people.
And I don't know that we're on Instagram,
No longer young people.
but we have a TikTok. apparently.
See? Yeah, I've seen that. The cops use it.
So, yeah, we can definitely be strategic about that. Start thinking how we want, because we're gonna want to promote the things we're doing in the future too, that's coming out of the committees, not just committee meeting notices.
And social media is everything. But somebody has to do it.
Someone has to do it, and again, I think that you're gonna get a different audience for people who, I mean, I follow the city, but I follow the city for different reasons. Other people might follow a platform that's specifically about this topic because they really care about this topic that could be fed in. And maybe there's already ones out there that we could actually just repost to, that we don't have to recreate a wheel. That,
Right.
you know, that might be the way to go with it, right? Instead of,
Friends of sustainability.
yeah, Friends of the Sustainability Board or something like that, but, you know, or just, you know, putting it on the Climate and Energy Project, sharing it there, sharing, I mean, I'm speaking for them, of course,
Right,
but, you know,
right.
different platforms that
There's
we can
definitely,
share it out
yeah,
to. that
definitely options,
would
so
reach. Yeah,
I would definitely think more about that. I know I try and do a little bit and then I get caught up in all the other things, so it's, yeah, we can definitely delve into that a little deeper.
we might ask for a meeting with you about that topic, just so that we can make sure that, you know, we're figuring out how do we handle better communications out to the community.
Yeah.
On these better educational efforts, we know what we're allowed to do and not allowed to do.
Have you met with the public yet or no?
Not yet.
Because I know you've got one that I know is probably young. Who might have a little more impact as far as some of the social stuff.
Absolutely.
And is it Jim Jonas, is he the right person that?
Yes, he's the-
All the communications, so he might be another
Have a
one
meeting.
to include, to brainstorm with what's possible.
Yeah, what we're. Yeah, and communicate things with him, so if he wants to shoot things out via the.
Yeah, and I don't know that he's the one that is like actively doing any of that, so if it's not Jim Jonas, then it would be Megan Lovely, who's does all the socials and everything.
We only have about 10 minutes left, so I wanted to go to the climate resiliency planning updates, and Nina, I think that's back to you.
Yeah, that's just really
I was
quick.
gonna ask you about NASA too.
Yes, so just quick updates. I am working on figuring out, a skeleton and draft of how we're going to tackle climate adaptation and mitigation planning. And so I have been using some online resources that provide some good steps. The first of which is identifying our hazards and risks, which is in progress. And that's something that we're also doing with our CDP reporting that's in progress. On a side note, I will get you guys a draft of that submission or it gets submitted. It gets submitted on July 27th. So I won't be able to bring it to the next meeting, but I'll send it out via email. If you have any comments or concerns, you can directly respond to me. You'll be able to view that before we submit. So that's sort of the first part, is identifying and really putting some weight and data behind the hazards and risks. And then some of the stuff we're already doing, which is investigating options. So that's what the community is bringing to us, what EFC's report has given us, and then prioritizing and planning, what you guys are doing in committees. And so a lot of this is happening currently. And so, when we're thinking about this, and we'll probably have another discussion on this later, but we're talking a lot of, short-term projects, short-term plans. The next thing will be identifying those long-term plans for 10, 20 years out. And they don't have to be specific projects necessarily, but a guideline of how we would get to these targets and these goals that we're identifying. Because we don't want to set these targets and then have no way or no plan to achieve them. So that's where I'm at. It's going to be a long process because we do want to get community input as well. And so still trying to figure out when that comes in, how. So we're still at the very early stages.
Just maybe some like town halls on the topic, those type of different topics. Where you could get, and we can get as the board, maybe some more community input as well. Doing a monthly town hall on a topic related to this. So one topic might be on, how do we deal with climate change and inequity, between different racial and income groups, for example.
Right.
That could be one. Or, again, what would the community like to see in terms of energy efficiency, both maybe at the city, but in general, right? So city level, and by city level, I mean city buildings, but then also things that have to change within the community as a whole, things like that.
Yeah, and I think it's probably going to be a multi-pronged approach where it's going to be we're stepping into other spaces to ask questions and gather feedback, and we're hosting our own, or we're doing these hybrid options or something. So, yeah, I think figure that out.
I mean, it's just one way to reach maybe a lot of people. I agree with you. It has to be multi-pronged, right? It can't be just that. That's one forum,
Right.
but I would suggest that being one of them to really get, good community feedback that way.
And then, potentially having Spanish speakers and having a translator, or having it led by a Spanish speaker and then translated back to whoever's taking notes or whatever, to make it more accessible in, a few different ways. So,
Utilize the spaces in the different library systems, for example, like do one at Evergreen, do one, of course, downtown here, do one in the various. I think that might be a nice.
yeah, the neighborhood resource centers, as well. So yeah, hopefully more to come. It's definitely on my agenda, but this summer has been very busy.
How can we help you?
I think the biggest thing is going to be really setting in on those targets. I mean, we do those targets and the priorities. Some of it will come from the city and science-based targets, but some will need to come from others. So I don't have a solid plan for that yet. But I will definitely, I'll let you guys know how we can sort of collaborate, sort of parse it out. Still figuring it out.
I'm glad it's happening, and then as we can fill in it.
Yeah.
Hopefully some of the committees that, that we're already starting to form now can also be.
Yeah, I think a lot of that work is going to inform what we're putting down on paper.
Absolutely. I might encourage too, if we're allowed to again, again, we're not ready for this yet, but as the committees get better established and are starting to figure some of this out, maybe hosting, again, if allowed to, different forums to get even more input from. And that's maybe something we're also doing through our communications, is helping facilitate some of those opportunities to get out in the public.
Yeah, and we can definitely utilize library spaces. We're still working on planning speaker series for the fall. And there's a variety of topics we can talk about. And can also engage people then and there, and have it more interactive than just one person talking. Yeah, there's definitely some options going forward. We don't do a lot of tabling events or anything like that, but if something presents itself, that's also an option. Or this kind of ties back to the whole education aspect as well, because there's definitely overlap. But I'll have to see when those. I'll have to do some research on what there is available, that sort of stuff. So that's it for now. Hopefully more in the future.
Want to say something about NASA? Or?
Yes, I was just going to provide a brief update. I know Lori had requested that. The project did get started. We're about 2 weeks in. So the interns are working on their literature review right now, getting some background information put together. So they'll be putting together at least a couple of different maps, and there will be canopy, and there will be heat vulnerability, as well as socioeconomic factors. And there will be a narrative portion, and this will all be put together on like a story map, so that we can see the maps with all the information there. And it will also probably provide some other resources. There will be a full report as well, and so that will probably be linked. And other than that, I don't have a lot of information because they are still very new in the process. But it'll be done by mid-August. And it's a 10-week project, so they're hitting the ground running. And hopefully in the next couple weeks, they'll have some draft maps to show, which I can probably pass along as long as you guys don't distribute, just to show.
Show them here so that they can.
Yeah. But yeah, nothing will be finalized until they provide that data down the road. And they will provide us all the raw data on the GIS side so that we should be able to plug that into our own GIS platforms and overlay other things. So if we wanted to take that data and create other things with it or look at different aspects, we have the potential to do that. So we don't know exactly what the maps are going to look like, if there's going to be specific tabs or like click on things, if it's interactive, but that might shape up as we go along. So yeah, that's that.
Sorry, these ideas flow out of my brains and without much control. Have they contacted the extension office? I ask only because if they're doing mapping of this kind of stuff, I know the extension office has a really neat interactive map of their site and all the trees on it. So that if people are interested in a particular variety of tree, they can find out exactly where it is on the site. A bunch of data pops up and it's just, it's nice. They've already developed a nice format of mapping to do that sort of communication to people who are not used to working with GIS. So even if they just look at it, it might be useful.
Yeah, they had asked if there were any additional resources, so I will definitely provide that to them. So that should be helpful. They do have our tree canopy data from 2017. I don't know what data the extension office is using, but
I mean, it's a much smaller area, so it's a different scale, but they've clearly already addressed some of the issues, so it'd be helpful.
yeah, I'll send that along.
Any last comments, questions before we adjourn? A motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Everybody will second.
One second, so I'll take that as the vote. We're adjourned.
Nicely done.
Thank you all.
You're doing the lion's